Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. This is the retirement channel. If it's your first time here, welcome. I hope you enjoy the content and stick around for the fun. If you've been here before, thank you. I appreciate your loyalty. On this channel, I'll talk about pre-retirement planning, the stages of retirement, and just life in general. Things I think about, and probably similar things that you might be thinking about as well. So today I was thinking what to talk about, and I'd like to touch on something I've talked about in the past, and that is your F number. So you can take that for what you think it might be, but for me, the F number, I like to call it the freedom number. And what that freedom number is for me could be very different for you. I know my freedom number after quite some time analyzing, my situation, um, what I've done, how I've planned, and now I'm very comfortable with my freedom number. For you, it might be a different situation. Um, far as my respect for the freedom number, um, I've had that for a long time. I remember the first job I had. I was still in high school, and it was working at a fast food restaurant, very similar to Burger King, but not Burger King. Uh, I think Burger King's stepchild. But I remember working there and just being so excited about getting my first check. I was just working part time um, after school on the weekends, and I was just so excited. I was thinking, what am I going to do with all this money? Well, guess what? I got the check, and it looked like someone butchered it, uh, just like the hamburgers we sold. It was, I was very disappointed. I worked, 2 weeks, including the weekends, and I had really very little show for it. And at the time, I had this kind of, I guess, classic car. It was like a 71 Chevy Nova. And I was just planning to buy these real shiny chrome wheels to put on it. And I was just so excited to have all this money coming in from my new job. And once I got my paycheck, I realized that was a pipe dream. There was no, there was just not enough. I would have to work 2 months, if not more, to afford the wheels I wanted to put on this Chevy Nova. So from that point on, I made a decision. I thought, if I have to work this hard for this little, I am not going to invest that money in something that's going to go on something that's not me. And the car, even though I love the car, it was very nice actually. I thought, I'm not putting it on this car. I just worked way too hard for it. And from that point on, I just decided to save, save, save. And so that's how I've gotten to this freedom number we're talking about today. And like I said, your freedom number might be different. Maybe you came about it differently. So mine, started a long time ago, decades ago. And from that point on, I just promised myself I would not waste this money. So every chance I got, almost every penny I had, I would save it. And I was a hard saver. Even though I wasn't making much, I saved all I could. And that continued on into what I would call adulthood, after high school. And to be honest, I've never made a ton of money, but I've always saved and invested like one day this would turn out to be a ton of money. So it's taken a long time, decades, and at this point, I have finally arrived at my freedom number. And hopefully, you either know your freedom number or know how to calculate that. And that's what this video is about. How to, figure out what your freedom number is. For me, for the last couple of years, actually, I've been putting my expenses down on spreadsheets. Initially, just to track my expenses, but kind of from a 10,000 foot level. But as time has gone on, and since losing my father last year to lung cancer, everything's changed. I decided that I was going to commit to being very, very particular with my numbers and knowing what those numbers were, knowing exactly how much I was spending and what I was spending it on, and to calculate what I would be spending this money on in the future. A couple years ago when I started this, like many other YouTubers I've heard and watched, they were calculating, 2.5% inflation rates. But as you know, everything is quite a bit more expensive. So now I shoot for nothing less than 5.5 to 6% when I'm calculating my future inflation rate on my expenses. It may be high, it may be low. Currently, the financial market seems to be doing fairly well. I think probably propped up on AI. If it wasn't for AI and the expenditures that companies are putting out there for this technology, I think the market would be in much, much worse shape. So, as I've mentioned before, and you probably know as well, that things that go up always come down. So just like that, I think the market will eventually lose its air and fall back to earth. Who knows? Will it be 10%, 20, 30, 50%? Well, the way I've calculated my expenses, I am looking at, a 30% drop. And with my situation and with my freedom number, I can survive that. And the way I can do that is that I have enough in liquid assets in order for me to weather that storm. If it's 6 months or a year or even longer, I have enough liquid assets where I don't have to really touch my nest egg unless, I really, really had to. And that's something I don't want to do for as long as I can put that off. So it's very important to figure out what your freedom number is. Be very particular about your expenses, and what your future expenses will look like. For myself, I plan to do some serious traveling, international traveling as well. But at the same time, I'm keeping my expenditures, what I plan to spend, flexible. So if things are going well, then, I can probably spend more. If things start to take a downturn, then I'll cut back. And I have no problem with that. So I have, several funnels I can pull my money from to pay my expenses. But the one thing from what I've learned, and this is just from my own experience, is that you don't want to have to sell your stocks, your mutual fund, your index funds, ETFs, whatever, in a down market. Because that's really, from what I've learned, is really the only time you're going to lose money. As long as you keep the stock, you haven't lost anything. But as soon as you sell it, you've locked in that loss. So that's something with my freedom number and my planning and being very particular with the numbers. I plan to be able to sustain a period of um, a bad, storm in the financial markets. So, what I can suggest, and this is just coming from a guy who's, making his pre retirement planning, is that you be very particular with your numbers. Know exactly what you're going to spend and what you're going to spend it on. And also factor in this thing called inflation and how that might erode your savings. So, on that note, I appreciate you stopping by. Hopefully, you'll have a great rest of your day. And as I said before, if you're new here, welcome. I welcome you on this adventure. I plan to do a lot of things and talk about a lot of different things. So I appreciate if you'll share your ideas and comments. We can all learn from each other. And if you've been here before, welcome back. Please share as well. I want to make this a community about knowledge and being able to improve each other's um, pre-retirement planning and future retirement life. And that's what I'm here. I want to not only improve my situation as well as yours by sharing this information. So I appreciate your time. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.